Maya Thompson's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she stared at the two detectives standing in her doorway. Their badges gleamed under the hallway's flickering fluorescent light. "Miss Thompson, we need to ask you about Min-Jun Park." The name crashed into her like a tidal wave, dragging up memories she'd buried so deep she'd convinced herself they were dreams. I don't know anyone by that name," she lied, her voice barely steady. The older detective raised an eyebrow. "That's interesting, because he listed you as his only emergency contact. You're telling me you don't know the man who lives in apartment 7B? Your next-door neighbor?" Maya's heart stopped. 7B, the apartment next to hers. The mysterious tenant who moved in 3 months ago. The one she'd never seen clearly. Just shadows slipping through the hallway at odd hours. The sound of his door closing before dawn. The faint scent of cigarette smoke that sometimes drifted through the walls. What happened to him? The question escaped before she could stop it. "Gunshot wound. He's stable now, but he won't talk to us. Won't tell us who shot him or why. Just keeps asking if you're safe." The detective paused, watching her reaction carefully. "So we need to know, Miss Thompson. Why would a man you claim not to know care so much about your safety?" Maya's mind spun backward 15 years to a memory she'd locked away in the deepest corner of her heart. A teenage boy with dark eyes and bruised knuckles. Her mother's urgent whisper, "Don't tell anyone he's here." And a kiss, her first kiss, stolen under streetlights that made everything feel like a dream. "I need to see him," Maya heard herself say. The detective nodded slowly. "We were hoping you'd say that." The hospital hallway smelled like antiseptic and bad coffee. Maya's sneakers squeaked against the linoleum as she followed the detectives to room 304. Her heart hammered so hard she could barely hear their instructions about not staying too long, about calling them if he said anything important. Then they opened the door, and Maya's world tilted on its axis. He lay in the hospital bed, his left shoulder heavily bandaged, an IV drip connected to his arm. His black hair was longer than she remembered, falling across his forehead. But his face, even with 15 years of hardness etched into it, even with the scar running along his jawline, was unmistakable. Min-Jun Park, the boy who'd lived with her family for 6 weeks when she was 7 years old. The boy who'd disappeared in the middle of the night without saying goodbye. His eyes opened as she stepped into the room, and the recognition in them was immediate and devastating. "Maya," he whispered, his voice rough from pain or emotion or both. "You shouldn't be here. The police said you listed me as your emergency contact." Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, too high, too breathless. "I don't understand. I haven't seen you in 15 years. I didn't even know you were living next door." A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "I know. That was intentional." "Why?" The question came out sharper than she'd intended. "Why are you here? Why now?" Min-Jun tried to sit up, winced, and fell back against the pillows. "Because I made a promise to your mother, and because the people who did this—" He gestured to his shoulder. "They're coming for you next." The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun. "What are you talking about? Who's coming for me?" "The same people who've been trying to kill you for the past 5 years." He said it so calmly, like he was discussing the weather. "The Korean syndicate. They don't forget debts, Maya, and your mother's debt is one they've been waiting a long time to collect." Maya's legs suddenly felt weak. She grabbed the back of the visitor's chair for support. "My mother died 3 years ago. Whatever debt you're talking about, it died with her." "That's not how they see it." Min-Jun's dark eyes locked onto hers, and she saw something in them that made her breath catch, a fierce, protective intensity that was both terrifying and intoxicating. Your mother saved my life when I was 16. She hid me from the syndicate, fed me, gave me a chance to survive. They know that. And in their world, helping their enemy makes you their enemy too. So, you've been… what? Watching me? For 15 years? Protecting you, he corrected quietly. There's a difference. Maya laughed, but it came out bitter and broken. Protecting me? Like some kind of stalker guardian angel? Do you know how insane that sounds? Look in the top drawer of your nightstand when you get home, Min-Jun said, his voice steady despite the pain he must have been in. There's a folder. Everything's in there. Every threat, every close call, every time I kept them away from you. You've been in my apartment? Maya's voice rose despite herself. Only when necessary. He held her gaze without flinching. Only when you were in danger. This is crazy. This is absolutely… Maya stopped, pressing her hands to her temples. I need air. I need to think. She turned toward the door, but Min-Jun's voice stopped her. Maya. She looked back. I know you don't understand. I know you're angry, but please… His voice cracked slightly. Please be careful. Keep your doors locked. Don't go anywhere alone after dark. And if you see anyone suspicious, anyone at all, you call me. You're in a hospital bed with a gunshot wound, Maya pointed out, trying to ignore the way her heart twisted at the concern in his voice. Then call the police. He recited a number from memory. Detective Kim, tell him I sent you. He owes me a favor. Maya wanted to say something cutting, something that would let her walk out of this room with her pride intact. But the look in his eyes, the raw, desperate worry, silenced her. Fine, she said finally. But this conversation isn't over. I know. Min-Jun's expression softened slightly. I never expected it would be. Maya barely remembered the drive home. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white, and her mind kept replaying that hospital room encounter on an endless loop. Min-Jun Park was alive. Min-Jun Park had been living next door for 3 months. Min-Jun Park claimed he'd been protecting her for 15 years. It was insane. It was terrifying. And some small, traitorous part of her heart whispered it was also kind of romantic. She shook her head violently, trying to dislodge that thought. This wasn't romance. This was stalking. This was surveillance. This was… Her apartment building loomed ahead, and Maya's stomach churned with anxiety. She'd lived here for 2 years, always feeling safe, always feeling… watched over. Oh God, how much of her life had Min-Jun seen? She parked in her usual spot, grabbed her purse, and hurried toward the entrance. The security guard, Mr. Chen, who always had a smile and a terrible joke ready, waved at her cheerfully. Miss Thompson? Working late again? Something like that, Maya muttered, forcing a smile. Your neighbor in 7B had some trouble today, I heard. Police came by. Hope everything's okay. Maya's steps faltered. Did you know him? The man in 7B? Mr. Chen scratched his chin thoughtfully. Quiet guy, always polite. Moved in about 3 months back, kept odd hours but never caused trouble. Why, is he okay? I don't know, Maya admitted, which felt like the truest thing she'd said all day. She took the elevator to the 7th floor, her heart pounding harder with each ascending number. When the doors opened, she found herself staring at 2 apartment doors, 7A, hers, and 7B, his. The hallway was empty and silent. Maya unlocked her door, stepped inside, and immediately locked it behind her. Something she realized she'd been doing religiously for years, without really thinking about why. Had Min-Jun conditioned her to be cautious? Or had she always sensed the danger he'd been protecting her from? Her apartment was exactly as she'd left it that morning. Neat living room, small kitchen, bedroom door slightly ajar. Everything normal, everything safe, except she knew now that safety had been an illusion carefully maintained by the man next door. Maya walked to her bedroom, her feet moving on autopilot. Her nightstand was a simple white IKEA piece with 2 drawers. She'd never looked in the top drawer. She used the bottom one for books and hand lotion and other random things. Her hand trembled as she pulled open the top drawer. Inside was a manila folder, thick and well-worn. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She lifted it out, carried it to her bed, and opened it with shaking hands. The first page was a photograph, a grainy security camera image of a man watching her apartment building from across the street. He was heavily built, with a scar across his cheek. Someone had circled his face in red marker and written, Park Tae-jin, Syndicate Enforcer. Neutralized, 03/15/2019. Neutralized. Maya didn't want to think about what that meant. She flipped to the next page. Another photograph, another man, another date, and another note about neutralization. Page after page after page. At least 20 different men over the past 5 years, all photographed watching her building, following her to work, lurking near her favorite coffee shop. Maya's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the folder. Interspersed with the surveillance photos were other documents. Police reports about accidents near her apartment. News articles about gang violence in her neighborhood. Handwritten notes in Korean that she couldn't read, but which were marked with her name. And at the very bottom of the folder, tucked away like a secret, was a photograph that made Maya's heart stop. It was old, faded, printed on regular paper that had yellowed with age. A 7-year-old girl with pigtails, grinning at the camera. A teenage boy standing slightly behind her, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder, his expression serious but his eyes soft. Maya and Min-Jun. 15 years ago. She didn't remember anyone taking this photo. Didn't remember this moment. But looking at it now, she could see the truth written in the way the teenage Min-Jun looked at her. Like she was precious. Like she was worth protecting. Like she was the only light in his dark world. He'd carried this photo for 15 years. Maya pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting back tears she didn't understand. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat on her couch, the folder open on her coffee table, going through every single page by lamplight, building a picture of a life she'd never known she was living. A life where danger lurked around every corner, and a silent guardian stood between her and chaos. Around 3 in the morning, she heard movement from the apartment next door. Maya's head snapped up, her heart racing. Min-Jun was supposed to be in the hospital. The doctor had said he'd need to stay for observation for at least 48 hours. But she knew that sound. The specific creak of his floorboards, the slide of his door opening, the soft footsteps in the hallway. He'd checked himself out. Of course he had. Maya stood, walked to her door, and pressed her ear against it. She heard his keys jingle, heard his apartment door open and close. Then silence. She should go back to bed. She should pretend she hadn't heard anything. She should. Her hand was already unlocking her door. The hallway was dark, except for the emergency exit sign at the far end. Maya stood in her doorway, barefoot and wearing her sleep shorts and oversized t-shirt, staring at apartment 7B. Before she could second-guess herself, she knocked. The door opened almost immediately, as if he'd been waiting. Min-Jun stood in the doorway, still wearing his hospital wristband, his left arm in a sling. He'd changed into dark jeans and a black t-shirt that did nothing to hide the bulk of his shoulder bandaging. His hair was messy, his face pale from pain, but his eyes were alert and focused entirely on her. "You should be in the hospital," Maya said. "You should be asleep," Min-Jun countered. They stared at each other for a long moment. "I found the folder," Maya said finally. Something flickered in Min-Jun's expression. Relief, maybe, or resignation. And I have questions. I have painkillers and instant coffee. Both are terrible, but they're what I've got. Maya shouldn't go in. She shouldn't cross this threshold. Everything about this was a bad idea. She stepped inside anyway. Min-Jun's apartment was sparse in a way that spoke of someone who never planned to stay long. A couch that looked barely used, a small dining table with one chair, no photos on the walls, no personal touches. Just the basics needed for survival. Except, Maya's eyes caught on the wall facing her apartment. There was a small desk there, and on that desk were 3 monitors, all currently dark. Surveillance? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Min-Jun followed her gaze. Not anymore. I disconnected everything when I moved in. I needed to be closer, but I wasn't going to... He trailed off, seeming to struggle for words. I wasn't going to watch you like that. Not in your home. There are lines even I won't cross. But you crossed into my apartment. Multiple times? Only when you were in immediate danger. Twice when the syndicate sent someone to plant surveillance devices in your place. Once when there was a gas leak from your stove that you didn't notice. And once, he paused, his jaw tightening. Once when someone broke your window in the middle of the night and you slept through it because you'd taken Benadryl for allergies. Maya remembered that night. She'd woken up to find her window repaired and had assumed the building maintenance had fixed a crack she hadn't noticed. You fixed my window? And dealt with the person who broke it? Dealt with. Maya repeated the word, tasting its implications. Like you neutralized the others? Min-Jun moved carefully to his couch and sat down, his face tightening with pain. I did what was necessary to keep you alive. Did you kill them? The question came out blunt and raw. Some of them. He met her eyes without flinching. The ones who gave me no choice. The rest, let's just say they decided Korea was safer for their health than Los Angeles. Maya should have been horrified. She should have been running for the door. Instead, she sat down on the opposite end of the couch, maintaining careful distance between them. Why? She asked. Why spend 15 years of your life protecting someone you barely knew? My mother saved you, yes, but that was her choice, not mine. I was 7 years old. I didn't ask for this. Min-Jun was quiet for a long moment, his good hand flexing against his knee. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough. Do you remember the night before I left? Maya's breath caught. She'd thought about that night so many times over the years, she'd half convinced herself it was a fantasy her child brain had invented. We went to the convenience store, she said slowly. My mom sent us to get milk. It was a test, Min-Jun said. She wanted to see if I could handle being in public without panicking. I'd been hiding in your apartment for 6 weeks, jumping at every sound, convinced the syndicate would find me any second. Maya remembered his hand in hers, how tightly he'd gripped it as they walked down the street. You were so scared, she whispered. Terrified, Min-Jun agreed. But you weren't. You just held my hand and talked about your favorite cartoon and pointed out every cat we passed, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like I was normal. You were 16 and running for your life, Maya said. Of course you were scared. And you were 7, and you treated me with more kindness than I'd experienced in my entire life. Min-Jun's voice cracked slightly. On the way back from the store, we passed that playground. Do you remember? Maya nodded slowly. The memory was coming back in fragments, swings creaking in the night breeze, streetlights casting long shadows, Min-Jun looking at her with those impossibly sad eyes. You asked me if I was going to leave soon, Min-Jun continued. I didn't want to lie to you, so I said yes. And you asked if you could kiss me goodbye, just in case you never saw me again. Maya's face flushed hot. I was 7. I didn't understand. You kissed me on the cheek, Min-Jun interrupted gently, and you said, when I grow up, I'm going to marry someone brave like you. He looked at her, and there was something raw and vulnerable in his expression. That was the moment I knew I couldn't let anything happen to you, not because of the debt to your mother, but because you were the first person who'd ever made me feel like I was worth saving. The words hung between them, heavy with years of unspoken feeling. I was a child, Maya said, but her voice was unsteady. You can't have... I didn't, Min-Jun said firmly. I didn't have feelings like that, not then. You were a kid. I was a kid, really, even at 16. But you planted something in me that night. Hope, maybe. The idea that I could be someone worth caring about. Someone brave, like you said. He shifted slightly, wincing as the movement pulled at his injury. I left the next morning. Your mother gave me money, a fake ID and contacts who could get me out of the country. I spent the next 3 years in Japan, learning how to survive, how to fight, how to move through the world without leaving traces. And every time I thought about giving up, I remembered your face, your stupid, fearless 7-year-old smile. Maya felt tears prickling at her eyes and blinked them back furiously. When I finally came back to the States, the first thing I did was check on you. I told myself it would be just once, just to make sure you were okay. But then I saw the syndicate surveillance. They'd already found out about your mother's involvement. They were watching your house, cataloging your routines, waiting for the right moment. To do what? Maya asked, though she was afraid she knew the answer. To make an example, Min-Jun said simply. To show what happens to people who help their enemies. So I stayed. At first it was just monitoring from a distance, making sure nothing happened. But the threats kept coming. They were persistent. And I couldn't... His voice broke slightly. I couldn't let them touch you. So you've spent 15 years of your life babysitting me, Maya said, trying for levity but failing. I spent 15 years keeping the most important promise I've ever made, Min-Jun corrected. To your mother, yes, but also to myself. And maybe... He hesitated. Maybe to that 7-year-old girl who thought I was brave when I felt like a coward. Maya couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight, her heart too full of contradictory emotions. You grew up, Min-Jun continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I watched from a distance as you graduated high school, went to college, got your first job, moved into this building. And somewhere along the way, my promise became something else. Something I don't have a right to feel. What? Maya forced the question out. Min-Jun looked at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. Pride, he said. Every time you accomplished something, every time you handled a crisis with grace, every time you proved that you were exactly as brave as that 7-year-old predicted you'd be, I was proud of you. He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. And something else. Something that started maybe 5 years ago, when I watched you handle your mother's death with such strength. Something that grew every time I saw you laugh with your friends, or fight back against your terrible boss, or rescue that stray cat you named Chairman Meow. Despite everything, Maya let out a surprised laugh. You know about Chairman Meow? He's been living in my apartment for the past 3 months, Min-Jun admitted. He keeps sneaking over through the fire escape. I think he can smell that I feed him better than you do. You've been stealing my cat? Borrowing, Min-Jun corrected, with the faintest smile. And for the record, he's been providing excellent security services. Nothing gets past Chairman Meow. Maya laughed again, and this time it felt real. Then, almost without thinking, she scooted closer to him on the couch. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Tell me what you're feeling, she said quietly. The thing you don't have a right to feel. Min-Jun's jaw tightened. Maya, tell me. He was silent for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I'm in love with you, he said, his voice rough and raw. I have been for years. I know it's wrong. I know it makes everything I've done seem like some obsessive stalker fantasy. I know I have no right to feel this way about someone I've been watching from the shadows. But it's the truth. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. I fell in love with your courage, Min-Jun continued, the words spilling out now like he couldn't stop them. With the way you always order the same terrible sweet coffee that has more sugar than actual coffee. With how you talk to yourself when you think no one's listening. With your kindness, the way you always leave extra big tips for delivery drivers. The way you donate to every charity that asks. With your strength, the way you survived your mother's death and came out still believing the world was good. He looked at her, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. I fell in love with the woman you became, and I hate myself for it, because you deserved someone who could love you in the light. Someone who could take you on real dates and meet your friends and be a normal part of your life. Not someone lurking in the shadows, always watching, always waiting for the next threat. Maya reached out slowly and placed her hand over his, feeling his fingers tense beneath hers. What if... Her voice shook slightly. What if I told you I've felt watched for years, but not in a scary way? What if I told you I've always felt safe in this building, even though it's in a terrible neighborhood? What if I told you that sometimes, late at night, I'd hear noises from your apartment and feel comforted by them? Min-Jun stared at her. Maya, you can't. What if I told you, Maya continued, her voice growing stronger, that I've been having dreams about that kiss for 15 years, that I remembered you, that I looked for your face in crowds, even though I told myself I was being ridiculous, that when you moved in next door 3 months ago, some part of me recognized you, even though I never saw you clearly. You couldn't have. Your aftershave, Maya said simply. It's the same one you wore 15 years ago. I smelled it in the hallway, and something in my chest just knew. Min-Jun's breath caught. Why didn't you say anything? Because I thought I was going crazy, Maya admitted. Because what were the odds that the boy from my childhood would show up as my mysterious neighbor? I convinced myself I was imagining things, that I was projecting, that I was... She stopped, her eyes widening as another memory surfaced. Oh my God, the coffee shop. Min-Jun's expression shifted to something almost guilty. What about it? 3 months ago, right before you moved in, I was at the coffee shop, and this creep wouldn't leave me alone. He kept asking for my number, following me to my table, getting aggressive, and then suddenly he just left, ran out of the shop like something scared him. He was syndicate, Min-Jun said, quietly. Using a pickup artist routine to get close to you, gain your trust. I'd been tracking him for weeks. When I saw him corner you, He paused. I made it very clear that you were off limits. You were there, in the coffee shop? At the counter, ordering the terrible black coffee they call espresso, watching to make sure you were safe. Min-Jun's expression softened. You were wearing that blue sundress, the one with the little flowers. You looked so happy before he bothered you. I wanted to... He cut himself off, but Maya understood. He'd wanted to be the one sitting across from her, wanted to be the one making her smile instead of lurking in the background. This is insane, Maya whispered. Everything about this is completely insane. I know, Min-Jun said. You've been stalking me for 15 years. Yes. You've killed people to protect me. Yes. You broke into my apartment multiple times. Only when necessary, but yes. You're in love with me. Min-Jun's expression cracked, showing raw vulnerability. Hopelessly. Maya took a shaky breath. She should be terrified. She should be calling the police. She should be... She leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't like their first kiss, that innocent childhood peck that had meant everything and nothing. This was adult, complicated, weighted with years of longing and fear and desperate hope. Min-Jun froze for half a heartbeat, and then his good hand came up to cup her face, his touch incredibly gentle despite the violence she knew those hands were capable of. The kiss was soft, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking some fragile spell. Maya tasted coffee and pain medication, and something that was uniquely him, a combination of danger and safety that made her head spin. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Min-Jun rested his forehead against hers. "We can't," he started, but Maya cut him off. "Don't tell me what we can't do," she said firmly. "Don't tell me this is wrong or impossible or that I don't understand what I'm getting into. I found a folder full of death threats in my nightstand, Min-Jun. I'm pretty clear on the situation." "You deserve better than this," Min-Jun said, his voice cracking. "Better than me." "What I deserve," Maya said, pulling back to look him in the eyes, "is to make my own choices, and I choose to understand what's happening before I decide anything. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to rest because you literally have a bullet hole in your shoulder, and tomorrow you're going to tell me everything, the whole truth, about the syndicate, about the threats, about what happens next." "And then?" Min-Jun asked, something like hope flickering in his expression. "And then I'll decide if I want the mafia boss next door to be something more than just my neighbor." Min-Jun laughed, wincing as the movement pulled at his injury. "I'm not a boss, I'm just—" "You've been taking out syndicate enforcers for 15 years, Maya interrupted. "I'm pretty sure that makes you something in their world." "An enemy," Min-Jun said quietly. "It makes me their enemy, which means being close to me puts you in even more danger." "I've been in danger for 5 years according to that folder," Maya pointed out. "At least now I know about it. At least now I have a say in what happens next." She stood up, smoothing down her sleep shorts. "Get some rest, doctor's orders. And Min-Jun?" He looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his expression made her heart ache. "Thank you," she said softly, "for keeping me alive all these years, for being my guardian angel, even if you went about it in the creepiest way possible." "Despite everything," Min-Jun smiled. "You're welcome. And Maya?" "Yeah?" "Lock your door, both locks, and push your dresser in front of it." "Paranoid much?" "They know I'm here now," Min-Jun said, his expression darkening. "They know I'm injured. They might see this as an opportunity." A chill ran down Maya's spine. To do what? To finish what they started. He met her eyes steadily. "But I promise you, they'll have to go through me first, and I have no intention of making that easy for them." Maya did lock both locks when she got back to her apartment, and she did push her dresser in front of the door, feeling slightly ridiculous but also grateful for Min-Jun's paranoia. She climbed into bed but didn't bother trying to sleep. Instead, she stared at the ceiling, her mind replaying the past 12 hours on an endless loop. She'd kissed Min-Jun Park, the boy from her childhood, the man who'd been watching her for 15 years, the guardian who'd killed to keep her safe. And some part of her, maybe the 7-year-old who'd fallen for a scared teenager's sad eyes, maybe the woman who'd felt inexplicably safe for years without knowing why. Some part of her wanted to kiss him. Again. Around 5 in the morning, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Can't sleep either. If you hear anything strange, knock on the wall 3 times. I'll be there in seconds. MJ." Maya smiled despite herself and typed back, "How do you have my number?" His response came immediately. "I've had your number for 15 years, just never had a reason to use it before." "Stalker," she typed. "Guardian," he corrected. "Potato, potato." There was a longer pause, and then, "Get some sleep, Maya. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Why? Because I'm going to tell you everything, and after that you'll probably never want to see me again. Maya stared at her phone for a long moment, then typed, I doubt that. You shouldn't give me hope, came his reply. Too late. Now rest. That's an order. Since when do you give orders? Since I found out my neighbor is a mafia vigilante, Maya typed back. I figure that earns me some authority. She could almost hear his laugh through the text. Fair enough. Good night, Maya. Good night, Min-Jun. Maya set her phone on her nightstand, and finally felt her eyes start to close. For the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever, she fell asleep knowing exactly who was watching over her. And instead of feeling afraid, she felt safe. Maya woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of someone moving around in her kitchen. She shot upright in bed, heart racing, before remembering. Min-Jun had a key. Of course he did. He'd been sneaking into her apartment for years. She grabbed her robe, wrapped it around herself, and padded to the kitchen. Min-Jun stood at her stove, his injured arm still in its sling, using his good hand to flip something in her frying pan. He'd changed into fresh clothes, dark jeans and a gray Henley that did interesting things to his shoulders, and his hair was damp from a shower. Breaking and entering is still illegal even if you're making breakfast, Maya said, leaning against the doorframe. Min-Jun glanced over his shoulder, and the smile that crossed his face made Maya's stomach flip. Good morning to you too. How do you like your eggs? Scrambled, with cheese. Maya moved closer, eyeing the pan suspiciously. How did you even do this with one arm? Practice. I've been cooking with worse injuries. He slid the eggs onto a plate and handed it to her. Toast is in the toaster. Coffee's on the counter. It's not the sugary disaster you usually order, but it's better than instant. Maya took the plate, still processing the surreal domesticity of having the man who'd been secretly protecting her for 15 years cooking breakfast in her kitchen. You know how I take my coffee? She said slowly. 6 pumps of vanilla, extra cream, whipped cream on top, caramel drizzle, Min-Jun recited without looking at her. Yes, I know. It's disgusting and I judge you for it, says the man who drinks motor oil masquerading as espresso. At least I can taste the actual coffee. Maya couldn't help but laugh. She sat at her small dining table, and Min-Jun joined her with his own plate of eggs and toast. For a moment, they just ate in comfortable silence. This is weird, right? Maya said finally. This is objectively very weird. The weirdest, Min-Jun agreed. Yesterday I didn't know you existed. Today you're making me breakfast. Technically, you've known I existed since you were 7. Technically, I thought you were a dream I made up until yesterday. Maya took a sip of her coffee. He'd made it perfectly, of course he had, and studied him across the table. So, are you going to tell me everything like you promised? Min-Jun's expression sobered. He set down his fork and met her eyes. Everything, he agreed. But first, I need to show you something. He pulled out his phone, typed something, and slid it across the table to her. Maya picked it up and found herself looking at what appeared to be a surveillance photo from last night. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. 3 men in dark clothing stood across the street from their building, looking up at the 7th floor. They came last night, Min-Jun said quietly. While you were sleeping. I sent them away with a message. Maya's hand trembled slightly. What kind of message? The kind that makes it clear that touching you means war. His voice was steel. But it won't hold forever. They're getting desperate. The syndicate's been bleeding money and influence for years. They see collecting your mother's debt as a way to save face, to prove they're still powerful. How much time do we have? Days, maybe a week. Min-Jun leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. which is why I need to tell you everything now. You need to understand what you're up against so you can make an informed decision. Decision about what? About whether you want to run or fight. He held her gaze steadily. I can get you out of the country. New identity, new life. You'd be safe. They'd never find you. But, Maya prompted, sensing there was more. But you'd have to leave everything behind. Your friends, your job, your life. You'd be starting over completely, and you'd be alone. What about you? Something flickered in Min-Jun's expression. I can't come with you. I'm the reason they're after you in the first place. If I disappear with you, they'll never stop looking. But if I stay here, lead them on a chase in the opposite direction. He trailed off. You'd be a decoy, Maya finished, her chest tightening. You'd sacrifice yourself to keep me safe. It's what I've always planned to do if it came to this. No. The word came out sharp and firm. Absolutely not. Min-Jun blinked, clearly surprised. Maya, I'm not running, and I'm not letting you martyr yourself for me. Maya set her coffee down with a decisive clink. You said there's another option. Fighting. What does that look like? It looks dangerous, Min-Jun said bluntly. It means staying here, using you as bait to draw them out, and taking them down permanently. All of them. The entire Los Angeles cell of the syndicate. Can we do that? We. Min-Jun's eyebrows rose. There's no we in this scenario. If we go that route, you stay somewhere safe while I handle... No, Maya interrupted. If I'm bait, I'm conscious bait. I'm not sitting in some safe house while you risk your life. Again. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me, Maya said, leaning forward. Tell me everything. The whole truth. Who are these people? Why did they want to kill a 16-year-old kid? Why is my mother's debt worth 15 years of their time and resources? Min-Jun was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working as he seemed to struggle with where to begin. Finally, he spoke. My father was the head of the Korean syndicate's LA operations, he said, his voice carefully controlled. Park Dae-jung. You might have heard of him. There was a big trial about 10 years ago. Multiple murders, racketeering, human trafficking. He got life in prison. Maya's eyes widened. Your father was a monster, Min-Jun finished flatly. He was a violent, cruel man who ruled through fear. And he expected me to follow in his footsteps. Started training me when I was 12. Taught me how to fight, how to intimidate, how to hurt people. His hand clenched on the table, and Maya gently placed her hand over it. He looked up, surprised, but didn't pull away. When I was 16, he ordered me to kill someone, Min-Jun continued, his voice rough with old pain. A businessman who'd defaulted on a loan. My father wanted it to be my first kill, my initiation into the organization. He handed me a gun and told me to prove I was his son. What did you do? I couldn't do it, Min-Jun said simply. I looked at this man. This terrified middle-aged guy with pictures of his kids in his wallet, and I couldn't pull the trigger. So I helped him escape instead. Got him out of the warehouse where they were holding him, gave him money, told him to run as far as he could. He laughed bitterly. My father found out within hours. I'd disgraced him, betrayed the syndicate. The punishment for that kind of betrayal is death. Not just for me, but for my entire family line. My mother, my younger sister, everyone. Maya's breath caught. Where are they now? Dead, Min-Jun said, his voice hollow. My father killed my mother himself. Called it justice. My sister. His voice cracked. She was only 10. They made it look like a car accident. Oh my God, Maya whispered. Min-Jun, I'm so sorry. I ran, he continued, as if he hadn't heard her. Like a coward, I ran. Knew my father's men would be coming for me next. I had maybe a day's head start, no money, no resources, nowhere to go. I slept in alleys, stole food, kept moving. but they were always close, always hunting. He looked at Maya, and the raw pain in his eyes made her heart break. Then one night, I collapsed behind a restaurant, hadn't eaten in 3 days, was running a fever, could barely walk. I thought that was it. Thought I'd die in an alley, and maybe that was justice for getting my mother and sister killed. It wasn't your fault, Maya said fiercely. Your mother found me, Min-Jun said, a small, sad smile crossing his face. She was taking out the restaurant's trash. She worked there as a waitress, remember? And she found this half-dead teenage kid, and instead of calling the cops or walking away, she helped me. Took me home, fed me, let me stay. She never told me any of this, Maya said. I just thought you were a friend's kid who needed a place to crash. She was protecting you, Min-Jun explained. The less you knew, the safer you were. But she knew exactly what she was doing. I told her everything the first night, who my father was, who was hunting me, the danger she was putting herself in. And you know what she said? Maya shook her head, tears pricking at her eyes. She said, everyone deserves a second chance, especially children. Then she made me soup and set up the couch for me to sleep on. Min-Jun's voice was thick with emotion. She saved my life, Maya, not just physically. She made me believe I could be something other than my father's son. How did you get away? Maya asked. How did you end up leaving? Your mother had a friend, an old boyfriend actually, who worked in immigration. She called in a favor, got me a fake passport and documents, arranged transport to Japan. She spent 6 weeks preparing everything while keeping me hidden in your apartment. He paused. Those 6 weeks with you and your mother were the happiest of my life, and the most terrifying, because I knew I was putting you both in danger every day I stayed. Is that why you left without saying goodbye? Your mother insisted, said clean breaks were safer. If you didn't know where I'd gone or why, you couldn't accidentally reveal anything. Min-Jun's expression softened. But I never forgot you. Either of you. I spent 3 years in Japan, learning everything I could about survival, about fighting, about how to move through the criminal underworld without leaving traces. And the whole time, I was planning. Planning what? Revenge, Min-Jun said simply. I was going to take down my father's organization, destroy everything he'd built, make him pay for what he did to my mother and sister. Did you? Maya asked. I helped, Min-Jun admitted. When I came back to the States, I started feeding information to the FBI, testified against him anonymously. My testimony was part of what put him away for life. He paused, his expression darkening. But the organization didn't die with him. His second-in-command, Park Tae-sung, my uncle, took over, and he made it his personal mission to hunt down everyone who'd helped me escape, including your mother. Maya felt ice flood her veins. Her car accident. Wasn't an accident, Min-Jun confirmed, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry, Maya. I tried to protect her. I was watching, always watching, but they were patient. They waited until I was across the country dealing with another threat. They staged it perfectly, made it look like she'd fallen asleep at the wheel. Tears were streaming down Maya's face now. You're telling me my mother was murdered because she helped you? Yes, Min-Jun said, meeting her eyes despite the agony in his own. And that's why I can't let them take you too. That's why I've spent 5 years since her death being more vigilant than ever. Because you're all I have left of her. You're the proof that her kindness meant something. And I will die before I let them touch you. Maya couldn't speak. Her mother's death had devastated her, but she'd accepted it as a tragic accident. Knowing it was murder, knowing it was connected to the scared boy her mother had sheltered, changed everything. I understand if you hate me now, Min-Jun said quietly. I understand if you want me gone. Everything bad in your life traces back to me. Your mother's death, the constant danger you've been in, all of it. I'm the poison that infected your family. Maya stood abruptly, and Min-Jun tensed, clearly expecting her to leave or lash out. Instead, she walked around the table and pulled him into a hug. He froze, his breath catching, and then his good arm came around her waist, holding her like she was the only solid thing in his world. "You're not poison," Maya said fiercely against his shoulder. "You were a kid running for your life. My mother chose to help you because that's who she was. She chose kindness even knowing the risks. And I—" Her voice cracked. "I choose the same thing. I choose to stand with you, to fight with you, because that's what she would have wanted." "Maya!" Min-Jun's voice was wrecked. "They killed my mother," Maya continued, pulling back to look him in the eyes. "They've been threatening me for years. They think I'm weak, that I'm an easy target, that I'm just some debt to be collected. So let's prove them wrong. Let's end this. Together." "You don't know what you're saying," Min-Jun protested, even as hope flickered in his expression. "These people are dangerous. They'll come at you with everything they have." "Good," Maya said, and meant it. "Let them come, because they're not just fighting you anymore. They're fighting both of us. And I'm my mother's daughter. I don't back down." Min-Jun stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Then, slowly, reverently, he pulled her back into his arms. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he whispered against her hair. "Then let's make sure her death wasn't in vain," Maya said. "Tell me the plan. Tell me how we end this." They spent the rest of the morning at Maya's dining table, Min-Jun's laptop open between them as he walked her through everything: the syndicate's structure, their key players, their weaknesses, the evidence he'd been collecting for years. "The problem is proof," Min-Jun explained, pulling up a file of surveillance photos. "I know they killed your mother. I know they've been threatening you, but I can't prove it in a way that would hold up in court. Everything I have is circumstantial or obtained illegally. So we can't just go to the police. We can, and we should, but it won't be enough to take down the whole organization. At best, we'd get a few low-level enforcers arrested. Tae-sung would just send more." Min-Jun's jaw tightened. "The only way to truly end this is to get him directly, on record, admitting to everything. And how do we do that?" "We make him an offer he can't refuse," Min-Jun said with a grim smile. "Me." Maya's blood ran cold. "Absolutely not." "Hear me out," Min-Jun interrupted. "Tae-sung's wanted me dead for 15 years. He's spent countless resources hunting me. What if I offer him a trade? My life for yours. I turn myself in, he leaves you alone. He'd jump at that chance." "And then he'd kill you," Maya said flatly. "That's not a plan, that's suicide." "Not if we're recording everything," Min-Jun countered. "Not if Detective Kim has backup ready to move in. Not if we stage it so that Tae-sung incriminates himself trying to gloat before he kills me." "There are so many things that could go wrong with that plan." "I know," Min-Jun admitted. "But it's the only play we have. Unless—" He hesitated. "Unless what?" "Unless we disappear," Min-Jun said quietly. "Both of us. I have enough money saved. We could go somewhere they'd never find us. Start over." The offer hung between them, tempting and terrifying in equal measure. Maya thought about her life here, her job that she didn't love but didn't hate, her friends who she'd been pulling away from lately, sensing some danger she couldn't name, her apartment with its memories of her mother. Then she thought about a life on the run with Min-Jun, constantly looking over their shoulders, never really safe, never really free. "No," she said firmly. "That's not living. That's just a different kind of prison. I want us to be able to walk down the street without fear, to build a real life. Together." Min-Jun's expression shifted at that last word. "Together?" Maya felt her cheeks heat but held his gaze. "You said you're in love with me. I'm not sure what I feel yet. This is all happening so fast. But I know I don't want you to die. I know I want the chance to figure out what this—" She gestured between them. "Could be, And we can't do that if we're running, or if you're playing martyr. So what do you suggest? Maya took a deep breath. We use your plan, but we modify it. You offer the trade, but we make sure the odds are in our favor. We control the location, we have backup, and... She met his eyes steadily. I'm part of the bait. Absolutely not. Listen to me, Maya insisted. If you just offer yourself, Tae-sung might suspect a trap. But if I'm there too, if it looks like you're sacrificing yourself to save me, he'll believe it. His ego won't let him pass up the chance to take everything from you at once. Min-Jun looked physically pained. Maya, I can't put you in that position. You're not putting me anywhere, Maya interrupted. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing to fight. You've spent 15 years protecting me. Let me return the favor. You don't know how to fight these people? Then teach me, Maya said. We have a few days, right? Teach me the basics. Enough to defend myself if something goes wrong. Enough to be useful instead of a liability. Min-Jun stared at her for a long moment, and Maya could see the war playing out in his expression. The instinct to protect her fighting against the practical knowledge that she was right. Okay, he said finally. But we do this my way. You follow my instructions exactly. No improvising, no trying to be a hero. The second things go wrong, you run. Deal? Deal, Maya agreed, even though she had no intention of running if it meant leaving him behind. Min-Jun must have seen the lie in her eyes, because he sighed. You're going to be the death of me. Not if I can help it, Maya said with a small smile. If you're enjoying this story of danger, protection, and unexpected love, make sure to like and subscribe. There's so much more coming, and you won't want to miss what happens next. The next 3 days were the strangest of Maya's life. By day, she went to work as usual. Min-Jun insisted on maintaining the appearance of normalcy to avoid tipping off the syndicate. But by night, her apartment transformed into a training ground. Min-Jun taught her the basics of self-defense with a patience she hadn't expected from someone so dangerous. How to break a hold, where to strike to cause maximum pain, how to use her environment as a weapon. You're small and light, he explained on the second night, demonstrating a move that would flip an opponent using their own momentum. That's actually an advantage if you use it right. Don't try to overpower someone, use their strength against them. Maya practiced the move, and Min-Jun let her throw him even though she could tell his shoulder was still hurting. Better, he said from the floor, pride in his voice. Again. They trained until Maya's muscles burned and sweat dripped down her face. Then Min-Jun would order Thai food or pizza, and they'd eat sitting on her living room floor, talking about everything and nothing. Maya learned that Min-Jun was addicted to terrible reality TV shows, that he had a sweet tooth. He tried to hide that he'd taught himself to play piano during his years in Japan as a way to keep from going insane. Min-Jun learned that Maya could quote every episode of her favorite sci-fi show, that she'd always wanted to learn to dance but was too self-conscious, that she wrote poetry in a secret notebook she'd never shown anyone. And slowly, beneath the training and the planning and the looming threat, something grew between them. It was in the way Min-Jun's hand would linger on her waist when he was showing her a defensive stance, the way Maya's breath would catch when he stood too close, the way they'd catch each other staring, and neither would look away. On the third night, after a particularly intense training session, they ended up on the couch, both breathing hard, Maya's head resting against Min-Jun's good shoulder. Thank you, she said quietly. For training you to fight people who want to kill you? That seems like a weird thing to thank me for. For letting me in, Maya clarified. For trusting me to be part of this instead of just trying to protect me from a distance. Min-Jun was quiet for a moment. I've been alone for so long, he said finally. I forgot what it felt like to have a partner. Someone to fight alongside instead of fight for. Is that what I am? Maya asked, tilting her head to look up at him. Your partner? If you'll have me, Min-Jun said, and the vulnerability in his voice made Maya's heart ache. She shifted slightly, moving so she could see his face better. They were close now, close enough that she could count the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough to see the faint scar on his lower lip. How did you get that? She asked, reaching up to trace the scar with her finger. Min-Jun's breath hitched at her touch. My father. When I was 14 and I talked back to him. He hurt you a lot, didn't he? He tried to make me into him, Min-Jun said. Every scar, every lesson in violence, it was all meant to break me, to remake me in his image. But it didn't work. Your mother showed me that pain doesn't have to define you, that you can choose kindness even after you've known cruelty. Maya's hand moved from his lip to cup his cheek. You're nothing like him. You know that, right? Everything you've done, protecting me, taking down his organization, trying to make his victims whole, that's the opposite of what he was. Sometimes I worry, Min-Jun admitted, that I'm too much like him, that the violence comes too easily, that I enjoy it too much when I'm taking down people who hurt innocents. That's not the same thing, Maya said firmly. He hurt people because he enjoyed their pain. You hurt people to protect others. Intent matters. Context matters. You really believe that? I believe in you, Maya said simply. Min-Jun's expression cracked, showing a depth of emotion that made Maya's chest tight. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Too bad, Maya said, leaning closer. You're stuck with me now. This time, when they kissed, there was no hesitation. Min-Jun's hand slid into her hair, gentle but possessive, and Maya pressed closer, her hands finding the hem of his shirt. The kiss deepened, years of longing and fear and desperate hope pouring into it. Min-Jun's mouth moved against hers with a reverence that made her feel precious, cherished, like she was something worth protecting, not out of duty, but out of desire. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Min-Jun rested his forehead against hers. We should stop, he said, though his hand was still tangled in her hair, his thumb tracing patterns on her scalp that made her shiver. Why? Maya asked, letting her hand slide up his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palms. Because, Min-Jun's voice was rough. Because if we don't stop now, I won't be able to. And you deserve better than this. Better than making this decision while death is hanging over both our heads. What if I don't want to wait? Maya challenged, her fingers finding the buttons of his shirt. What if I want this now, while we can still have it? Min-Jun caught her hands, stilling them. Maya, I'm not fragile, she said, meeting his eyes. I'm not going to break. And I'm not going to regret this, no matter what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow, Min-Jun repeated, and reality crashed back between them. Tomorrow was the day. The day Min-Jun would reach out to Tai-sung. The day they'd set their trap. The day everything would end, one way or another. Maybe you're right, Maya said softly, pulling back slightly. Maybe we should wait. Until after. When we don't have to worry about... Min-Jun kissed her again, cutting off her words. This kiss was different. Deeper. More desperate. Like he was trying to memorize her. If something goes wrong tomorrow, he said against her lips, I need you to know something. Don't, Maya said. Don't talk like that. I need you to know, Min-Jun insisted, that loving you has been the best thing I've ever done. That you saved me just as much as your mother did. That these past few days with you have been worth every dark year that came before. Tears pricked at Maya's eyes. Min-Jun? And I need you to know, he continued, his voice breaking slightly, that if I don't make it out of this, I want you to live, really live, not just survive, but thrive. Promise me. I'm not promising that, Maya said fiercely, because you're going to make it out. We both are. And then we're going to have a real first date. Something normal and boring, like dinner and a movie. And then a second date, and a third. And we're going to figure this out without death threats hanging over us. Min-Jun smiled, but it was sad. You're an optimist. I'm my mother's daughter, Maya corrected. She believed in second chances. So do I. So stop talking like you're going to die and start planning for what comes after. What comes after? Min-Jun repeated, like he was tasting the words. Yeah. What do you want? When this is over, when the syndicate is gone, when we're free, what do you want your life to look like? Min-Jun was quiet for a long moment, his hand still resting against her cheek. I want mornings like this one, he said finally. Making you breakfast, drinking terrible coffee, arguing about whether your sugar milk counts as actual coffee. I want to fall asleep knowing you're safe, not because I'm watching from the shadows, but because I'm right there with you. I want... He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. I want normal, boring. A life where the most exciting thing that happens is whether we binge-watch one show or another. Maya's heart felt too full. That sounds perfect. And you? Min-Jun asked. What do you want? I want to wake up without fear, Maya said. I want to introduce you to my friends without having to explain why my boyfriend was in the witness protection program or whatever cover story we come up with. I want to visit my mother's grave and tell her I found someone who makes me feel safe and cherished and brave all at once. I want... She laughed slightly. I want to steal Chairman Meow back from you and force you to adopt him officially so he stops sneaking between apartments. He's already mine, Min-Jun said with mock seriousness. I have documentation. You made fake adoption papers for my cat? Our cat, Min-Jun corrected. And yes, he's legally Park Chairman Meow now. I had them notarized and everything. Maya laughed, really laughed, and the sound seemed to lift some of the heaviness from the room. You're ridiculous, she said. You're the one who named a cat Chairman Meow, Min-Jun pointed out. And you're the one who legally adopted him without my permission. I'm a criminal, Min-Jun said with a shrug. Stealing cats is pretty low on my list of crimes. They grinned at each other, and for just a moment, the danger and fear faded away. For just a moment, they were just two people falling in love, laughing about their shared cat, imagining a future together. Then Min-Jun's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He checked it, and his expression darkened. It's Detective Kim. He's got the warrant. Everything's in place for tomorrow. Reality crashed back over them like a wave. Okay, Maya said, forcing steel into her voice. Then let's get some rest. Tomorrow we end this. Maya barely slept that night, but she didn't think Min-Jun did either. She could hear him moving around his apartment, the soft sounds of preparation that spoke of someone who'd done this before. Around 3 a.m, there was a soft knock on her door. Maya opened it to find Min-Jun standing in the hallway, looking exhausted and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. Can't sleep? She asked. Can't stop thinking about all the ways this could go wrong, he admitted. Maya stepped back, letting him in. Want some of my sugar milk non-coffee? God, yes. They ended up on her couch again, mugs of hot chocolate in hand, sitting close enough that their shoulders touched. Tell me about Japan, Maya said. You've mentioned it a few times, but you've never really talked about what those 3 years were like. Min-Jun was quiet for a moment, sipping his drink. Lonely, he said finally. I was surrounded by people, but I couldn't let anyone get close. Couldn't risk them finding out who I was or where I'd come from, so I just existed. Learned to fight, learned to survive, learned to move through the world like a ghost. That sounds awful. It was, Min-Jun agreed. But it was also necessary. I wasn't ready to come back yet. Wasn't strong enough or Smart enough to take on the syndicate, so I waited. Trained. Planned. He paused. And thought about you. Maya's breath caught. About 7-year-old me? About the person you'd grow up to be, Min-Jun clarified. I'd wonder if you still remembered me, if you were safe, if you were happy. It became this mental exercise, imagining your life, your future. It kept me sane on the really dark days. What did you imagine? Min-Jun smiled slightly. That you'd become a teacher. You always liked explaining things to me when we were kids, very patient and thorough. I imagined you in a classroom full of students who adored you, or maybe a librarian. You loved books even then. Somewhere quiet and safe where you could be happy. I'm a graphic designer, Maya said, pretty close to the safe and quiet part. You're good at it, Min-Jun said. I've seen your portfolio. That logo you designed for the nonprofit? It's excellent. Maya stared at him. How did you... Your computer password is Chairman.234, Min-Jun said apologetically. Not very secure. I might have looked once or twice when I was making sure no one had planted malware. You are such a stalker, Maya said, but there was no heat in it. Guilty, Min-Jun admitted. But in my defense, your work is genuinely impressive. You have an eye for design that's rare. You could be working for a major firm if you wanted. Maybe after all this is over, I'll apply to some, Maya said. Fresh start, new opportunities. What about you? What will you do when you're not being a vigilante? Min-Jun looked surprised by the question. I haven't thought about it, he admitted. This has been my entire life for so long. Protecting you, hunting the syndicate. I don't know who I am without that. Then we'll figure it out together, Maya said, squeezing his hand. Maybe you could open a dojo, teach self-defense to people who need it. Or become a private investigator, Min-Jun mused. Put all those surveillance skills to legitimate use. Or, Maya said with a grin, you could just be my kept man, live off my graphic design empire. Min-Jun laughed. Your sugar milk habit alone would bankrupt us. Then I guess you'll need a job. They smiled at each other, and Maya felt a surge of determination. They were going to get through this. They were going to have those boring, normal mornings and stupid arguments about coffee. They were going to build a life together. They had to. You should get some rest, Min-Jun said reluctantly. Big day tomorrow. Stay, Maya said impulsively. Just stay here tonight, on the couch if you want. I just don't want to be alone. Min-Jun's expression softened. Okay, but the couch. Let's not complicate things more than they already are. Deal. Maya grabbed a blanket and pillow, setting Min-Jun up on her couch. As she turned to go to her bedroom, his hand caught her wrist. Maya. She looked back. Thank you, he said quietly. For giving me something to fight for beyond duty or revenge. For giving me hope. Maya leaned down and kissed his forehead. Thank you for keeping me alive long enough to have this chance. Now rest. Tomorrow, we win. The warehouse was exactly the kind of place where bad things happened in movies. Abandoned, isolated, full of shadows and echoes. Maya's heart hammered as Min-Jun parked his car a block away. Last chance to back out, he said, his voice steady but his eyes worried. You can still go to the safe house. Detective Kim's people will protect you. Not a chance, Maya said, checking the wire hidden under her jacket for the third time. We're doing this together. Min-Jun reached over and took her hand, squeezing it gently. If anything happens to me, nothing's going to happen, Maya interrupted firmly. We have backup, we have a plan, and we have each other. That's enough. Maya. She leaned over and kissed him, cutting off his protests. I love you, she said against his lips. I know it's fast and crazy and probably terrible timing, but I love you. And you don't get to die on me before we get our boring, normal life. Understood? Min-Jun stared at her, eyes wide with shock. You love you, Maya repeated. Present tense. Not going anywhere. So let's go end this so we can start our lives. Min-Jun pulled her into a fierce kiss, one that tasted like promises and hope and desperation. When they pulled apart, his eyes were bright. I love you too, he said. Have for years, will for the rest of my life. Then let's make sure that's a long life, Maya said with more confidence than she felt. They got out of the car. Min-Jun's hand rested on the small of her back as they walked toward the warehouse. Protective, possessive, grounding. Maya could feel the slight bulge of the gun hidden at his waist, knew he had at least 2 knives on him as well. She had pepper spray, and the knowledge he'd drilled into her over the past 3 days. It didn't feel like enough, but it would have to be. The warehouse door was unlocked, creaking ominously as they pushed it open. Inside was a vast space, dimly lit by skylights, filled with crates and industrial equipment that cast long shadows. Park Min-Jun, a voice called out from the darkness. It's been a long time. A man stepped into a shaft of light. He was in his 50s, well-dressed in a suit that seemed out of place in the abandoned warehouse. His face was cruel, his smile sharp. Park Tae-sung. Min-Jun's entire body tensed, but his voice was steady. Uncle, you're looking well. Prison food doesn't suit the Park family, Tae-sung said conversationally. Your father wasted away before the cancer finally took him. Did you know? He asked for you at the end. Wanted to see his traitor son one last time. I'm sure he did, Min-Jun said flatly. So he could kill me himself? Probably, Tae-sung agreed with a laugh. He never forgave you for choosing weakness over family, for saving that pathetic businessman, for getting your mother and sister killed with your cowardice. Maya felt Min-Jun flinch beside her, and she squeezed his hand tightly. Don't let him bait you, she thought desperately. I'm not here to discuss ancient history, Min-Jun said. I'm here to make a trade. So I heard. Tae-sung's eyes slid to Maya, and the hunger in them made her skin crawl. The daughter, I have to admit, I'm impressed you kept her alive this long. We've sent our best people after her. And I dealt with all of them, Min-Jun said coldly. Which brings us to now. I'm offering you a deal. You leave Maya alone, completely, permanently, and I'll stop running. I'll accept whatever punishment you think the family deserves. Your life for hers? Tae-sung tilted his head. How noble, how pathetically predictable. He began to circle them slowly, like a predator assessing prey. But why would I accept such a trade when I can simply take both of you, kill you, then kill her, finally close this embarrassing chapter of family history? Because I have insurance, Min-Jun said. Evidence of everything you've done for the past 15 years. Murder, extortion, human trafficking, money laundering, all documented, all ready to go to the FBI if anything happens to either of us. Tae-sung stopped circling, his expression darkening. You're bluffing. Am I? Min-Jun pulled a USB drive from his pocket and held it up. 15 years of surveillance, financial records, recorded conversations, names, dates, locations, everything the FBI would need to dismantle your entire operation. Maya could see the calculation in Tae-sung's eyes, the weighing of risk versus reward. And you'll just hand that over? Tae-sung asked skeptically. Along with your life? If you swear on the family name that Maya walks out of here unharmed and stays that way, Min-Jun said, that no one from the syndicate ever touches her again. Yes. The family name, Tae-sung repeated mockingly. You think that means anything anymore? Your father destroyed our honor when he got sloppy and landed in prison. I've been rebuilding from nothing. Then rebuild without this hanging over you, Min-Jun pressed. Take the win. You get me, you get the evidence, you get to close the books on your biggest embarrassment. All you have to do is let one innocent woman walk away." Tae-sung considered this, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You really love her, don't you? This girl you've been following around like a lovesick puppy for years." "Yes," Min-Jun said simply. "Which is why I know you'll honor this deal. Because killing her in front of me would be so much more satisfying than just letting her go. And you've always been about maximizing suffering." A slow, cruel smile spread across Tae-sung's face. "You know me so well, nephew." He gestured, and several men emerged from the shadows, at least 6 heavily armed enforcers. "But you see, I've always preferred having my cake and eating it too." Maya's blood turned to ice. "So here's my counteroffer," Tae-sung continued, pulling out a gun. "I kill you both, slowly and painfully. Then, I take that USB drive off your corpse and destroy it, and the Park family honor is restored." "That's not," Min-Jun started, but Tae-sung raised the gun, aiming it directly at Maya. "One more word and I shoot her first," Tae-sung said pleasantly. "Make you watch her die before I kill you. Would you prefer that?" The warehouse was silent except for Maya's rapid breathing. She could feel Min-Jun vibrating with barely controlled violence beside her, could sense him calculating angles and odds. "You won't get away with this," Maya said, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "Did you really think we'd come here without backup?" Tae-sung laughed. "The police? Please, I own half the LAPD, and the ones I don't own are too scared to move against me. Your boyfriend might have taken out some of my men over the years, but the organization is bigger than a few enforcers." "I wasn't talking about the police," Maya said. Tae-sung's smile faltered slightly. "Then who—" The warehouse door exploded inward. What happened next was chaos. Detective Kim and at least a dozen officers in tactical gear swarmed in, weapons drawn. Tae-sung's men scrambled for cover, shots rang out, and Min-Jun grabbed Maya, pulling her behind a crate. "Stay down," he ordered, drawing his own weapon. But Maya could see what he couldn't. One of Tae-sung's enforcers circling around behind them, gun raised, aimed at the back of Min-Jun's head. She didn't think, just moved. Using the technique Min-Jun had taught her, Maya grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and swung it with all her strength at the enforcer's knee. He went down with a scream, his shot going wide, and Min-Jun spun around in time to disarm him. "I told you to stay down!" Min-Jun shouted over the gunfire. "You're welcome!" Maya shouted back. More police poured in. Tae-sung tried to run, but found himself surrounded. His enforcers dropped their weapons one by one, hands raised in surrender. It was over in less than 3 minutes. Detective Kim approached, holstering his weapon. He was a stern-looking man in his 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "We got everything," he told Min-Jun. "Every word recorded. Tae-sung admitted to ordering the hit on Maya's mother, to the threats against Maya, all of it. Combined with the evidence you've been collecting, this is enough to take down the entire LA cell." Min-Jun sagged with relief, and Maya caught his arm, steadying him. "It's over?" she asked, hardly daring to believe it. "It's over," Detective Kim confirmed. "Park Tae-sung, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and about 50 other charges we'll be adding as we go through all this evidence." He gestured to his officers, who moved to cuff Tae-sung. Tae-sung's face was twisted with rage as they hauled him to his feet. "You think this ends anything?" he spat at Min-Jun. "There are others. They'll come for you. They'll come for her." "Let them try," Min-Jun said coldly. "I've spent 15 years taking down everyone who came after us. I'll spend the next 15 doing the same if I have to." "But you won't have to," Detective Kim interjected. "We're coordinating with the FBI and agencies in Korea. This bust is going to trigger a domino effect. By this time tomorrow, the entire syndicate will be scrambling to cut deals. They'll be too busy saving themselves to worry about revenge." Tae-sung laughed bitterly as they dragged him away. You've won nothing, nephew. Nothing. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. His voice cut off as they pushed him through the warehouse door. Maya turned to Min-Jun, who was staring at the space where his uncle had been, his expression unreadable. "Hey," she said softly, touching his arm. "It's really over?" Min-Jun looked at her, and she saw the moment it hit him. The moment 15 years of tension and fear finally released. His eyes filled with tears he'd probably been holding back for more than a decade. "It's over," he repeated, his voice breaking. "Maya, it's—" She pulled him into her arms, and he collapsed against her, his whole body shaking with silent sobs. All around them, police were processing the scene, tagging evidence, leading away suspects. But in that moment, it was just the two of them. "You're safe," Min-Jun whispered against her hair. "You're finally safe." "We both are," Maya corrected, holding him tighter. "We're both finally safe." The next few weeks were a bureaucratic nightmare. Statements to give, depositions to attend, paperwork that seemed never-ending. Min-Jun's role in taking down the syndicate made him something of a controversial figure. He'd technically broken dozens of laws over the years, even if it was in service of bringing down worse criminals. But Detective Kim went to bat for him, and eventually the DA's office agreed to immunity in exchange for his testimony. All charges dropped. Clean slate. "You're officially a free man," Detective Kim told him over coffee one morning. "No warrants, no outstanding charges. You can actually exist in society now instead of haunting the shadows." Min-Jun looked dazed. "I don't even remember what that's like." "You'll figure it out," Kim said with a slight smile. "And hey, if you ever want to do this legally, we could use someone with your skills in the department. Consulting basis. Help us train officers in surveillance techniques." "I'll think about it," Min-Jun said, which they both knew meant yes. Maya, meanwhile, was dealing with her own aftermath. Learning the truth about her mother's death had reopened old wounds, but it had also brought closure. She visited her mother's grave and told her everything. About Min-Jun, about the syndicate, about how the debt had finally been paid. "You'd like him, Mom," she said, arranging fresh flowers on the headstone. "He's brave and kind and completely ridiculous about coffee. And he loves me the way you always said someone should. Like I'm precious and strong at the same time. Thank you for saving him all those years ago. Thank you for making this possible." The wind rustled through the trees, and Maya chose to believe it was her mother's way of saying, "You're welcome." 1 month after the warehouse confrontation, Maya came home to find Min-Jun waiting in the hallway, not sneaking around, not hiding, but standing openly at her door with a nervous expression and something hidden behind his back. "What's this?" she asked, unlocking her door. "Our first official date," Min-Jun said. "I know we've been living in each other's pockets for weeks, but we never actually did the normal thing, so—" He pulled out a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite. "Maya Thompson, would you like to have dinner with me tonight? Nothing fancy, just the Korean barbecue place down the street. As my girlfriend. Officially." Maya felt her eyes prickle with happy tears. "You're asking me on a date, after everything we've been through?" "I'm doing this right," Min-Jun said stubbornly. "Proper dates, proper courtship. You deserve that. You deserve everything." "Okay," Maya said, taking the flowers and inhaling their sweet scent. "Yes, I'd love to go on a date with you, Min-Jun Park." His smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. Dinner was perfect. They sat in a corner booth at the barbecue place, cooking meat together over the table grill, laughing about nothing and everything. For the first time, there were no shadows hanging over them. No threats lurking in the background. Just two people enjoying a meal together. "This is nice," Maya said, stealing a piece of perfectly cooked beef from Min-Jun's plate. "That's mine," he protested without heat. Community property, Maya declared. Dating rules. I don't think that's how dating works. Are you really going to argue with me about this? Maya grinned. After everything? Min-Jun laughed and pushed his plate toward her. Fine. Take it all. I'll just order more. See? You're learning already. After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, hands intertwined, watching the sun set over the Pacific. The same ocean that separated them from Korea, from the syndicate, from everything that had tried to destroy them. I have something to tell you, Min-Jun said as they paused at a railing overlooking the water. Maya's heart jumped. Good something or bad something? Good, I think, I hope. He took a breath. I bought a building, downtown. I'm going to open that dojo we talked about. Self-defense classes, martial arts training, focus on helping people protect themselves. Min-Jun, that's amazing. Maya threw her arms around him. I'm so proud of you. There's more, he said, holding her close. The building has a commercial space on the ground floor and apartments above. I'm taking the second floor unit. And the third floor... He paused, nervous. I was hoping maybe you'd consider moving in there. Not with me, not yet, but close. So we can actually have this proper relationship. Coffee in the mornings, dinner in the evenings. Chairman Meow going back and forth between apartments. Maya pulled back to look at him. You bought a building so we could be neighbors? I bought a building so we could build a life, Min-Jun corrected. Together but separate. Fast but not too fast. Is that okay? Maya kissed him, deep and sweet and full of promise. It's perfect, she said against his lips. You're perfect. This is perfect. I'm really not. Shut up and accept the compliment, Maya ordered, kissing him again. They stood there as the sun set, wrapped in each other's arms, finally free to simply exist together. No more secrets, no more shadows, just two people who'd found their way back to each other after 15 years of longing and fear and desperate hope. I love you, Min-Jun said, his voice full of wonder, like he still couldn't quite believe he was allowed to say it out loud. I love you too, Maya said. My guardian, my partner, my ridiculous coffee snob. Your what? If you're going to judge my drink choices, I get to judge yours, Maya said primly. It's only fair. Min-Jun laughed, the sound free and genuine and beautiful. Okay, fair, but I'm going to keep trying to convert you to actual coffee. And I'm going to keep ordering my sugar milk and enjoying every drop. Stubborn. You love it. I really do, Min-Jun admitted, kissing her forehead. I really, really do. 6 months later, Maya stood in the third-floor apartment, directing movers as they brought in her furniture. The space was bigger than her old place, with huge windows that let in ridiculous amounts of light. Perfect for the home office she planned to set up for her freelance design work. She'd quit her job 2 months ago and started her own business. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure, but she was making it work. And having Min-Jun 1 floor below definitely helped with the stress. Speaking of which, where do you want this? Min-Jun asked, carrying a box marked kitchen with ease despite its weight. You're supposed to be teaching a class, Maya pointed out. Class ended early. Thought I'd come help. He set the box down and wiped sweat from his forehead. Plus, the sooner you're moved in, the sooner we can have proper dinner dates, where I cook for you in your apartment like a civilized person. You just want an excuse to use my kitchen, Maya accused. Yours is tiny. Mine is efficient, Min-Jun corrected. Yours is excessive. Who needs 3 different types of mixing bowls? Someone who actually bakes, Maya shot back. Unlike some people who think toast counts as cooking. They'd fallen into this rhythm over the past months, playful bickering that always ended in laughter and kisses. It was comfortable and exciting all at once, familiar yet still new enough to make her heart race every time he smiled at her. The dojo had been an instant success, turned out there were a lot of people who wanted to learn self-defense from someone who'd actually used it to survive. Min-Jun's classes were always full, and he'd already had to hire 2 additional instructors to keep up with demand. He'd also started consulting with the police department, helping them with surveillance operations and training. Detective Kim had become a regular dinner guest, often showing up with case files and questions that Min-Jun would help solve over Korean fried chicken and beer. Maya's design business was growing too. Word of mouth had brought her clients from all over the city, and she'd just landed her first major corporate account. The logo she'd designed for a tech startup had gone viral, and suddenly everyone wanted that designer who did the thing. Life was good, better than good. It was everything she'd dreamed of during those dark days when death threats hung over her head. "Hey," Min-Jun said, interrupting her thoughts. "You okay? You got quiet." Maya smiled at him, this man who'd loved her from the shadows for so long and was now standing in the sunlight of her new apartment, paint smudged on his cheek from helping her paint the bedroom last week. "Just thinking about how far we've come," she said. "A year ago, I didn't even know you existed. Now I can't imagine my life without you." Min-Jun crossed the space between them and pulled her close. "A year ago, I was convinced I'd spend the rest of my life watching you, from a distance, never touching, never speaking, just keeping you safe from the shadows. And now I get to hold you in the light," Min-Jun said softly. "I get to wake up knowing you're 1 floor up. I get to cook you dinner and argue about coffee and plan actual future things like holidays and furniture shopping. It's—" His voice cracked slightly. "It's more than I ever thought I'd have." Maya reached up to cup his face, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw. "We both get more than we thought. That's the beauty of it." "I'm going to marry you someday," Min-Jun said suddenly. "Fair warning. I'm going to propose in some ridiculously romantic way, and you're going to say yes, and we're going to have the most boringly normal life imaginable." Maya's heart soared. "Is that a promise?" "It's a guarantee," Min-Jun said, kissing her softly. "You're stuck with me, Maya Thompson, for the rest of our very long, very boring, very safe lives." "Boring sounds perfect," Maya said, kissing him back. "Let's be boring together." If you've made it this far in this story of protection, redemption, and unexpected love, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. There are more stories like this waiting. Stories where love finds a way even through the darkest circumstances. Drop a comment telling me what kind of story you want to hear next, and I'll see you in the next video. 2 years later, Min-Jun proposed exactly as dramatically as he'd promised. He took Maya back to that playground where they'd shared their first kiss all those years ago. The swings had been replaced and the equipment updated, but it was still recognizable. Still the place where a 7-year-old girl had kissed a scared teenager goodbye and planted the seed of something that would grow over 15 years. "I've been carrying something for a long time," Min-Jun said as they stood under the streetlights, just like they had decades ago. He pulled out a small box and opened it to reveal a simple gold band with a single diamond. "It's not much." "It's perfect," Maya interrupted, tears already streaming down her face. "You didn't let me finish proposing," Min-Jun protested, but he was smiling. "Fine, continue." "Maya Thompson, you told me once that when you grew up, you wanted to marry someone brave, and I spent 15 years trying to be worthy of that, trying to be someone you could be proud of, someone who deserved the second chance your mother gave me, someone who deserved the love you've given me." He got down on one knee, and Maya's breath caught. "I'm still not sure I'm worthy, but I love you more than I thought possible, and I want to spend the rest of my life being boring with you. So, will you marry me?" "Yes," Maya said immediately. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Min-Jun slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd probably been measuring her finger in her sleep for months. The ridiculous man. He stood, and she launched herself at him, kissing him with all the joy and love and gratitude bursting in her chest. "I love you," she said between kisses. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Min-Jun said, holding her like she was his whole world. "Thank you for giving me a reason to step out of the shadows. Thank you for protecting me until I was ready to meet you in the light." They kissed again, under the same streetlights that had witnessed their beginning, sealing a promise that had taken 15 years and countless obstacles to fulfill. Behind them, a group of their friends started cheering. Maya pulled back in surprise to find Detective Kim, Min-Jun's assistant instructors, her design clients who'd become friends, and even Chairman Miao and his carrier, all gathered at the edge of the playground. "You told everyone?" Maya asked Min-Jun incredulously. "I wanted witnesses," Min-Jun said with a grin. "In case you said no, they could all testify that I at least tried. As if I'd ever say no to you." "Well, I didn't want to be presumptuous." Maya kissed him again, cutting off his words, and their friends cheered louder. The wedding was small and perfect. They held it at the dojo, surrounded by the people they'd come to love and trust. Detective Kim walked Maya down the aisle since her mother couldn't, and he handed her off to Min-Jun with a gruff, "Take care of her, or I'll arrest you for something. I'll find a reason." "Yes, sir," Min-Jun said seriously, but his eyes were only for Maya. She wore a simple white dress with sunflowers in her bouquet. He wore a suit that made him look dangerously handsome. And when they said their vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "I promise to love you in the light," Min-Jun said, his voice steady despite the tears streaming down his face. "To be your partner, not your guardian. To let you be strong while knowing I'll always be there when you need me. To argue about coffee for the rest of our lives. To be boring and safe and normal with you until we're old and gray." "I promise to trust you," Maya said, her own voice thick with emotion. "To see you not as the scared boy or the vigilant guardian, but as the man you've become. To build a life with you where we're both free to be ourselves. To appreciate your terrible black coffee even if I never drink it. To remind you every day that you're worthy of love. To be boring and safe and normal with you forever." They exchanged rings, his matching hers, simple gold bands that symbolized the simplicity they'd fought so hard to achieve. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said with a smile. "You may kiss." Min-Jun was already kissing her, dipping her dramatically, making everyone laugh and applaud. The reception was held in the building's courtyard, strings of lights overhead, and tables full of Korean and American food. Maya's friends mingled with Min-Jun's students. Detective Kim gave an embarrassing speech about how Min-Jun had gone from criminal to consultant to groom, and everyone toasted to new beginnings. As the night wore on and guests started to drift away, Maya and Min-Jun found themselves alone on the rooftop, looking out over the city lights. "Mrs. Park," Min-Jun said, testing out the name. "How does that sound?" "Perfect," Maya said, leaning against him. "Though I might hyphenate. Maya Thompson Park has a nice ring to it." "Whatever you want," Min-Jun said, kissing the top of her head. "As long as I get to call you mine." "Possessive," Maya teased. "Always," Min-Jun admitted. 15 years of watching over you doesn't just turn off, but I'm learning to let you be independent while still being there when you need me." "You're doing great," Maya assured him, "though you did check the lock on our apartment door 3 times before we left for the ceremony." "Old habits," Min-Jun said sheepishly. "I know, and I love you for it." Maya turned in his arms to face him. "Thank you for never giving up. On me, on us, on the possibility of this life." Thank you for seeing past the stalker behavior to the love underneath, Min-Jun countered. It was very well-intentioned stalking, Maya said solemnly. The best kind, really? They both laughed, and then they were kissing again, the city lights twinkling around them like stars. 5 years after the wedding, Maya was working in her home office, now located in the house they'd bought together in a quiet neighborhood, when Min-Jun appeared in the doorway, looking nervous. What's wrong? Maya asked immediately, years of heightened awareness not completely gone. Nothing's wrong, Min-Jun said quickly. I have something to tell you. Maya's heart skipped. Okay. Detective Kim called. They finally got approval for the program we talked about. The foundation to help kids escape gang life. They want me to run it. Maya jumped up from her desk. Min-Jun, that's incredible. This is what you've been working toward for years. It's a lot of responsibility, Min-Jun said, but he was smiling. And it means I'd have to cut back on the dojo classes, focus more on outreach and mentorship. But I'd be doing what your mother did for me, giving kids a second chance, a way out. She'd be so proud of you, Maya said, wrapping her arms around him. I'm so proud of you. There's one more thing, Min-Jun said, his hand moving to rest on her still flat stomach. Are you sure the timing is okay, with the baby coming? Maya placed her hand over his. They'd just found out last week that she was pregnant, and they'd been cautiously, joyfully processing the news. The timing is perfect, Maya said firmly. You'll be helping other kids while we raise ours. Teaching them that violence and crime aren't the only options, that there's another way. I'm going to be a father, Min-Jun said wonderingly, like he still couldn't quite believe it. Me, the kid who thought he'd die in an alley at 16. You're going to be an amazing father, Maya corrected. Patient and protective and brave, everything our kid could need. Min-Jun pulled her close, his hand still resting protectively over their child. I'm going to tell them stories about their grandmother, about how she saved a scared teenager and changed everything, about how kindness can ripple forward in ways we never imagine. And I'll tell them about their father, Maya said, about how he loved their mother from afar for 15 years, about how he fought to keep her safe even when she didn't know she needed protecting, about how love and duty can be the same thing when you love someone enough. They stood there in the afternoon light, streaming through the windows of their home, holding each other and the future they'd created together. We made it, Min-Jun whispered. Against all odds, we made it. We made it, Maya agreed, and we're going to keep making it every single day for the rest of our lives. Epilogue. 10 years later, Maya stood in the doorway of their daughter's room, watching Min-Jun read her a bedtime story. Min-Seo was 7 years old, the same age Maya had been when she first met Min-Jun, with her mother's smile and her father's serious eyes. And then the brave knight protected the princess, Min-Jun was reading, his voice soft. Did the princess need protecting? Min-Seo interrupted. Or could she fight too? Min-Jun smiled. What do you think? I think she could fight, Min-Seo said decisively. But it's nice to have someone watching your back. That's what you always say in your classes. That's right, Min-Jun agreed. The strongest people know when to ask for help and when to stand on their own. He glanced up and saw Maya in the doorway, his expression softening. Even after all these years, he still looked at her like she was miraculous. Mommy, Min-Seo called. Come tell us the story about how you and Daddy met. It's bedtime, sweetheart, Maya said, coming to sit on the edge of the bed. That's a long story. Just the beginning, then, Min-Seo bargained. Please? Maya looked at Min-Jun, who shrugged with a smile. Okay, Maya said. Once upon a time there was a little girl who met a brave but scared boy, and she gave him something very precious, hope. Years and years later, when the girl was all grown up, the boy, now a man, came back to repay her kindness. Did he save her? Min-seo asked. They saved each other, Min-jun said, taking Maya's hand. That's how the best love stories work. Not one person rescuing the other, but both people choosing to face the world together. Is that why you teach people to be strong? Min-seo asked her father. So they can save each other? Exactly, Min-jun said, kissing her forehead. Now sleep. Tomorrow you have your first self-defense class, remember? I know, Min-seo said excitedly. I'm going to be super strong like you. You already are, Maya assured her. Now rest. We love you. Love you too, Min-seo mumbled, already half asleep. Maya and Min-jun quietly left the room, closing the door softly behind them. In the hallway, Min-jun pulled Maya close, kissing her with the familiar warmth of years together. Thank you, he said softly. For what? For everything. For giving me a family. For giving me a purpose beyond just surviving. For loving the broken kid I was and the man I became. Thank you for protecting me until I could stand beside you, Maya replied. For seeing me as a partner, not just someone to guard, for building this beautiful, boring, perfect life with me. They walked hand in hand to their own bedroom, passing photos on the walls that told their story. The two of them at various ages. Their wedding, the opening of the foundation, Min-seo's birth, holidays and ordinary moments that were extraordinary in their normalcy. Do you ever miss it? Maya asked as they got ready for bed. The adrenaline, the danger? Not even a little bit, Min-jun said without hesitation. I spent 15 years living in the shadows. I'll take boring domesticity over that any day. Even when boring means changing diapers and attending PTA meetings? Especially then, Min-jun confirmed, pulling her into bed beside him. Those are the moments I fought for. The quiet, normal, safe moments that most people take for granted. Maya snuggled, against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong. I love you, Mafia Boss next door. Former Mafia hunter, Min-jun corrected. Current devoted husband and father, and I love you too, Maya Thompson Park, every day for the rest of our lives. That's a long time. Not nearly long enough, Min-jun said, kissing her one more time before they settled into sleep. And as they drifted off together, the house quiet and safe around them, Chairman Meow, now elderly but still protective, took up his position at the foot of their bed, standing guard over the family he'd adopted. The debt was paid. The danger was past. The shadows were gone. All that remained was love and the ordinary magic of a life built on second chances and impossible hope. The end. Thanks for staying until the very end of Maya and Min-jun's story. If you loved watching them find their way from shadows to light, from fear to freedom, from guardian and protected to partners in everything, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories where love conquers all, even the darkest pasts. Drop a comment telling me, would you want a stalker turned protector turned love of your life? Or is this strictly fantasy material? I want to hear your thoughts. And remember, sometimes the person watching over you from the shadows is really just waiting for the moment they can step into the light beside you. Sometimes the best love stories are the ones that take years to unfold, built on patience and protection and the quiet certainty that some people are worth waiting for. Until next time, stay safe, stay loved, and remember that everyone deserves a second chance at happiness. See you in the next story.